Welcome to Give It to God, the weekly webinar that I have heard to broadcast to my clients and anybody else that wants to join in through my body. The whole premise of this weekly call is to encourage people and to enable people to be able to hear the voice of their highest self through their body. My take on that is that our highest self is our direct line to God. It is our direct line to the energy that created all of us and everything on this planet. And I often talk about receiving many messages through my body. And this was one of the messages that I have been receiving for quite some time, is to host a weekly call that's open to the public, which, is whoever wants to join from my social media or my program, and for them to come along to hear the words that are channeled through me, and then also open at the end for Q&A and encourage people to be able to get to a place where they can hear the voice that is channeled through them individually. I'm not here to encourage anybody to hear my voice through their body or my way of being, my beliefs, my truths. Everybody's got their own direct line to their highest self. And my wish for this call, my work that I want to do here every week, is to enable people to remove the blocks that is inhibiting them from hearing that voice. I am going to start every call with inviting our highest selves into the room and inviting intentions for the call, for the individual call. And we will have a new theme every week. So if I tell you the theme for this week before we go into a few minutes of silent meditation, and then a prayer where we'll be inviting our highest selves, and I will speak the prayer just as it comes through my body, but I would ask you to close your eyes, have both feet on the ground, be sitting comfortably, and hear what your highest self, what the intentions that your highest self has for this call. So if I tell you the theme, first of all, the theme is "You're God, but so is everyone else," which is a message that came into my body a few weeks ago, and I was a bit bemused by the word "but" in the middle of the sentence. It's not "you are God and so is everyone else," it was "you are God, but so is everyone else," and it was a personal nudge to me from my highest self to remind myself that while I know most of the time, and not all of the time yet, but most of the time, that I have a direct connection to God, and it's my highest version of me that I carry inside of me has a direct line to the energy that created everything on the universe. I also have to remember that so does everyone else, and that other people's version of channeling God, if it doesn't look good to me, then that's something that I've got to go and have a conversation with God about myself, rather than projecting my own fears and my own prejudices and my own shame and my own judgment onto other people. So we're going to start with a few minutes of silent meditation together while we're sitting in silence, which a lot of people have challenges with in the beginning when they first come and work with me. I often encourage my clients to sit in silence for 15 minutes at the start of the day and 15 minutes at the end of the day. And it's something that a lot of people find challenging in the beginning, because we spend so much of our time busying ourselves, having things to do. And even when we don't have things to do, now I often say this, we walk around with these little things in our hands, where if we have some downtime, we have a few minutes in between tasks, then we've got into this habit of taking out our phone and scrolling social media, scrolling emails, scrolling messages. So there's rarely times when we can be in silence and be in stillness, and that's something that we have to put into our diaries and schedule silence and stillness, because that is how we access that direct line to God. We only access it when we're able to be in silence and stillness. Now, that doesn't mean that you go looking for the messages through your body in the stillness. What it does is it gives your body a chance to realign and your mind a break from all the thoughts, and your mind a chance to have silence and stillness and peace and a realignment of your body and your mind and your soul together. And then the messages could come later, and you will know what the messages are and how they feel because of the emotions in your body, the feelings in your body when you experience them. So we'll sit in silence first for a few minutes, then I will pray for the intentions of everybody on the call, and then we will start the discussion, and then we'll go into the 30 minutes Q&A. So if everybody would just put both feet on the ground, be sitting comfortably. If you're sitting up on your sofa or somewhere that you feel really comfortable, I mean, I've had people come on calls when they're lying in their bed. So if you're doing that, then you don't have to change your position to put your feet on the ground. It's just if you're sitting on a chair at a table like I am, then put both feet on the ground. Make sure you're comfortable. Close your eyes, and we will just go into a few moments of silence together. Before we go in, just be aware that some thoughts might come up. Thoughts might not come up. You might be well versed at this, but any thoughts that come in and out, just let them come in and out. Don't judge them. Don't have any perceptions of them. Just watch them coming in and out. But if you would like to take note of the thoughts that come in, and because it's something that's playing on your mind, that you would like to bring to the call, and see if we could sift through these things that are playing on your mind to reach the message from God underneath, then after we'll finish the few minutes silence, and please do feel free to take notes and write them down, and then we can incorporate them into a question at the end of the call. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you're watching it on my YouTube channel, you're watching it on Catch Up, then just before we go into meditation, I would just encourage you to come into meditation with us. It's just for a few minutes. It's just for getting back into stillness, getting back into silence, getting back into alignment with our bodies. So if you're watching it on Catch Up, don't be tempted to fast forward past this bit. The rest of the call's boring anyway, just kidding. Um, although there's truth in every joke is what I keep telling my clients this week. I would encourage you to just sit in silence with us just for a few minutes and just get back in contact with your divinity, and then we will take the call from there. So let's just close our eyes and have a shared silence together. Everyone can keep their eyes closed while I just bring our prayer of intention into the room with us before we begin. Dear God, my intentions for this call is for everyone who's here present to remember, believe, or realise that they are in alignment with you at all times, that they are an aspect of the divinity that brought us here. I want everyone on the call to remember that they are pure, unconditional love at source. That everything that's been placed on their path this week, in the past, and in the coming weeks has been placed there for one reason, for them to realise, remember, and believe that they are an aspect of your divine creation. You place nothing on the path of these people that they cannot overcome. You've equipped every one of us with all we need. And my wish for everyone on the call is to remember this as I speak. Pour unconditional love through me onto everyone on the call. And allow them to feel it in their bodies. Everything that we have within us that we cannot handle, we give to you. And we know that you will communicate with us through our bodies, through messages and synchronicities, through the people around us, the people that love us, and the world at large. We will hear through all of this the next steps of our journey, and we will take the steps on that journey with confidence, knowing that you are by our side and inside of us throughout. Thank you. So my intention for everyone on the call is to remember, realise or believe that they are an aspect of the creation, the divinity that created everything on this planet. If someone had told me 6 or 7 years ago that I would be sitting on a call today saying words like this and praying and sitting in silent meditation with the people on this call, with my clients when they come to one-to-one sessions with me, then I would have thought they were off their head. In 2019, 2020, I'd completely turned my back on any kind of idea or theory that there was a God, that there is a God. I was raised Catholic, and when my little girl was born in 2016 at 24 weeks, I had a huge fallout with God. And I just remember when she was about 12 hours old, sitting by her incubator and just being filled with so much rage inside my body. Like I could just feel all this anger inside of me. Frances weighed 650 grams at birth. The first night she was, after she was born, we were told by the doctors that she had a 10% chance of survival. And I had grown up with this Catholic belief that if you were a good person, if you were a good girl, you would go to heaven and God would look after you and everything would be okay. And I was raging against the God that I believed was there to look after me, and he had failed in his job. And I remember sitting there holding her tiny, tiny little hand and just being so filled with fear and anger and rage, and being like, that he can't be real, God can't be real, because why would I be punished in this way? The next day, after Frances was born, or maybe it might have been like 2 or 3 days later, I was sitting in the parents' room, and there was this room in the neonatal unit where all the parents would just go in between. If the doctors were doing their rounds and the parents weren't supposed to be in the room, then we would all sit weren't supposed to be in the ward, we'd all sit in this room together. It's such a strange experience being in a place like that, because you're thrown into this room with all these strangers who you all have this shared trauma that you're all going through, this shared fear that everybody's going through at the same time, but everybody's at various stages in it. So I was explaining it to someone this week because Monday was actually the anniversary of the day that Frances came home from the hospital. So it's her second birthday. She has her birthday on the day she was born, and then she has her birthday on the day she came home from the hospital. And I was explaining it to someone at the start of the week, and I said it's a bit like being in the Big Brother house. I've never been in the Big Brother house, but how I imagine the Big Brother house to be. And and then there's like people in for a couple of weeks, and then they bring in a new person or a new couple of people, and it's people have already bonded and they're already over here and they've done all these things together, and then new people show up. And so this day we were the new one. Me and Francis' dad were the new parents, and everybody had you spend a lot of time. Even in the ward, the incubators are quite close to each other, so there's like 10 incubators in a room. So there's 10 sets of parents in the room as well. So you're kind of talking to each other, across the room. And then we had this shared parents room. So by then there was a level of comfort that all the parents had with each other, and then Francis' dad and I went in. So we were the newbies, and I was in labour for 3 days. I was absolutely traumatized by the labour. Like I could barely speak. I was so terrified that this had happened to my baby. She was so small. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And then to be told in the first night, she's got a 10% chance of surviving the first night, and then it will increase after that. But there was something said to me by the first doctor that I saw that still to this day I'm intrigued by the words that he used, by the language that he used to describe to me what may or may not happen to her. And at that point, I was flooded with all this information and just absolutely terrified. Like felt like I was walking through a dream. And I'm generally quite an outgoing person. If I'm put in a room full of people, then I will start chatting. Like my friends all find it really funny how quickly I make friends with people, and I chat with people that I don't know for hours on end. And I wasn't myself. I wasn't that version of me at this point because I'd been through so much. And I remember just sitting in the room and everybody talking round about me, and like in the room but not in the room. Like it wasn't even like I was in my head having lots of thoughts. It was just like my body was sitting there but nothing else was there. I don't know where my consciousness was. I don't know where my thoughts were. Like I was just like a zombie. And this guy sitting across from me looking at me, and I saw him watching me, and he said to me, "Tell me about your baby." And I remember just looking at him, and he was like, I said, "Oh, her name's Frances. She was born at 24 weeks." He said, "Right, we've got a little girl, Isabella. She was born at 26 weeks." And by this point, Isabella was maybe about 10 weeks old. And he went on to tell me, "You're really, really scared now, but in a few weeks' time, you're going to be much better. And one day you'll be sitting here like the way I'm sitting here explaining this to you. You're going to be sitting there explaining that to someone else." And I remember watching him talk, and he was a big guy, a big personality, really, really nice, friendly guy. And all I wanted to do was grab him by the throat and punch him. Don't know if this still get kept in. Maybe I should try and make that a bit less Scottish. But it's true also. And like I just wanted to punch him. Honestly, that was all I wanted to do. Like every part of my body had gone into fight or flight, and I wanted to fight with this guy for sitting there having the audacity to try and tell me that in a few weeks' time I would be feeling okay. And he kept telling me about how strong his daughter was now and how much she'd grown and how great she was. And I wanted to open my mouth and scream at him. I don't care. I don't care about how your daughter's doing. I only care about how my daughter's doing, and she's tiny and I'm so scared. And I just wanted to scream, and I could hear myself screaming at him inside. And I think I probably, because this happened to me before at other periods of time, where I probably had a vision of myself grabbing the poor guy and being like that's never going to happen. Like he was telling me this, and I was like, that's never going to happen. He's like, one day you will sit here and you will explain to everybody else how how they're going to be, and you'll be telling them how healthy your child is, and how this feels like the worst thing in the world, but it's not. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And I was just like, just nodding away, just going, I just want to kill this guy. And then obviously what happened a few weeks later, that's exactly as what happened. I was able to comfort other parents that came in. And while I was able to do that and I was able to comfort other parents, I was still very, very traumatized by what had happened, extremely traumatized. It took me a long time. It took years before I could talk about it. I'll be honest, like even this week when I was explaining some of the stories to my friend, I started crying while I was doing it, and I was like, "Whoa, I didn't realise that there was still unprocessed grief in there that about Frances' birth, and she's now 10. And I didn't realise that it was still in there, that there was still this emotion there when I was telling the stories. And all I remember thinking throughout the 16 weeks that she was in hospital was God had let me down. That I remember being quite angry at my mother, who was really, really Catholic. And, you know, and prayers were being said for Frances all over the world, and masses were being held all over the world. We were getting messages from people on Facebook. There was masses being held in Australia and Sri Lanka, and a soldier who was in Afghanistan messaged me on Facebook saying, he looked every day for updates on Facebook about her, and it was really keeping him going. Reading about this little baby that was you know, fighting to get out of hospital, and the whole time, you know, I would have these thoughts when people were saying, because I come from a Catholic family, and that's generally what people would say, oh, keep it in my prayers, I'm praying for you. And you know, people were asking for masses to be said for her. And the whole time having this burning rage inside of me that I was like, but you know, well, why would God even do this to me? Why would God allow this to happen to me? And it wasn't until I went to therapy in 2020, so Frances was 4 years old by then, that I was able to say that out loud to my therapist. And I was like, I feel like I've been let. Then he was a very spiritual therapist as well. I was very, very lucky that I was introduced to this man. And I said, you know, I don't know what to believe. Like I feel like I've been punished because 2 years later, on the day before Frances 3 years later, the day before Frances' third birthday, my mother died very suddenly as well. And all these things had happened one after the other, one after the other. And it culminated in the death of my mother at 63. She was young, and her death was very sudden, and it devastated the whole family. And at that point, I was just like, what else is going to be thrown in front of me here, going to be put on my plate? Like I've got all this stuff going on in my life, and now my mum has passed away. And that was in 2019. If I've spoken about this a lot on social media and my group sessions, that I then uh, drank wine every night for almost a year, in order to numb the pain of my mother's death. And it was a year later, that a year after my mother died in 2020, just at the start of COVID, that God came for me. And I often say this to my clients, God comes for you, but he only comes when you're strong enough. And I was at the lowest point in my whole entire life at this point. And I had been drinking heavily every day for a year. When I say drinking heavily, I will say that I drank a bottle of wine every night to get me to sleep. A lot of people would probably might watch these videos and think that that's quite normal. That's like just something that people do to help them get off to sleep, and that's certainly what I told myself. But I had been working. I had a business, and had been working in a business that was weight loss and personal training and fitness and health, and that certainly did not tie in with the lifestyle that I portrayed. And So I was at the lowest I've ever really been, I've ever been in my life, and that was the point where God came for me. I often think that he first came for me in the form of COVID, and that COVID forced me to have a long, hard look at my life and what was happening in my life, what was happening in every relationship that I had, the relationship that I had with my birth family, the relationship that I had with, I was married at the time, the relationship I had with work. Most important relationship was the one that I had with myself. And I was asked by a coach, a mentor, did I believe in God? And my initial reaction was no, absolutely not. I think that there's something out there that's bigger than us, but I don't know what it is. But I don't believe in the Catholic God that I was brought up to believe in. And this is well documented, and I've spoke about it on lots of calls before, so I'm not going to get into it here. But if you would like to ask any questions on it, then please do. God God came for me. I didn't go looking for God. God came for me. I often refer to God as He because that's the pronoun that I want to give God. I think that God is neither male or female. It's God is an energy source, the source that created everything that we see round about us. I don't think it's masculine or feminine, but I call God He. Might be a throwback from being brought up in the Catholic Church, and that's the way he's referred to. Or I often think that it's because I'm female and my highest version of God that I carry within myself, I believe, is male, which is the opposite energy that I exude. So if I say he, then that's what I mean. And what happened in between 2020 and 2021, and there's a reason why I'm going down this path today, is I began to get these messages through my body, and I've been hearing one of the messages that I first got in 2020. I've been hearing it all day today and for the past couple of days, and it's just this constant like sentence that keeps coming into my body. And one of the things that I kept writing in my journal, and when I began writing things like this in my journal, I was quite afraid of it because I was like, I don't understand why I'm writing this when I don't even really believe in God, and yet I keep writing this thing. And it was these messages that were coming through, and one of them was, you will hold their hands while they look into the darkness, and you will show them that fear does not exist. The only thing that exists is love. Fear is not real. The only thing that is real is love. And I would write this over and over in my journal. You will hold their hands while they look at the darkness. And it was so profound and deep. And I'd be like, why on earth am I writing this? Like, where is this coming from? And I'd be somewhat embarrassed by it as well. And like, I was like, whose hand? Like, who's telling me that I'm going to be holding people's hands while they're looking at the darkness? And then I began writing a book called Holding Hands in the Dark. And for the past week, I've been hearing that same sentence, you will hold their hands while they look at the darkness. And the interpretation that I now have of that is the darkness is our shadow. It's all within us that we have repressed. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6 years with my one-to-one clients, with my group clients, with everybody that comes to me for any kind of coaching or healing, is I do hold their hand while they look into their shadow. I sit beside them or walk the journey with them while they look at everything that they've repressed in childhood and how it's manifesting into adulthood. When I first began receiving these messages, I was really afraid of them. I was very embarrassed. I was somewhat ashamed because it wasn't in line with, how I was brought up as a Catholic. It's like, who am I to think that God is telling me these things, these messages that I have to send to other people, or I have to tell other people, or I have to somehow go and do these things that God is asking me to do. And then recently, the past few days, I've been thinking about like priests and Catholic priests that I knew growing up, and I remember my sister-in-law telling me that a guy she went to school with who became a priest, and she was shocked by the fact that she just didn't think that he would be someone that would into the priesthood. And I think I recall a conversation where she said she met him years later, and she asked him about it, and he was like, it was a calling, like I was called to do it. And I remember hearing that story quite young, and not really understanding what the word calling meant. And it wasn't until I got well into adulthood and I was almost 40 when all of this happened that I now understand what she meant that day or what he meant when he told her that story. Because the messages that I received and continue to receive and that you can also receive through your body, they are a calling. That is the best way to describe them. You are called to do something through your body. Someone asked on last week's call, how do you know if it's your soul and not your ego, or your ego and not your soul? And it's quite a vague answer, and that I gave, and it was the best one that I can possibly give, is that you will know. So I didn't know what a calling meant until I had a calling. And then I was like, okay, all right, okay, that's what that guy meant, when he was called to the priesthood. And this thing that I've wrestled with for a long time and still wrestle with sometimes as well is, who am I to say that I hear the voice of God within me, or that I have this communication with God and he tells me to do these things, and I go out into the world and do them. But I also 100% believe that so does everyone else, so does every single person on the planet. And I teach my clients that to understand, okay, that's your body speaking, that's your highest self, that's your direct line with God. That's you follow that path, follow that voice. And a few weeks ago, I was meditating and I heard very clearly, you are God, but so is everyone else. This is not a new concept for me, right? This is something that I've been talking about for years. I was talking to one of my friends this week, and we were talking about she was going on a date, and she was going on a date with a woman who this might get cut out of the main thing because I might not be allowed to talk about this, but I'm going to say it here. She's going on a date with a girl who was really, really interested into octopuses. Do we say octopuses or do we say octopus? Octopuses. And she was like saying that she was going on a date with this girl. The girl really liked octopuses, and I was like, I really like it when people have got a thing that they love. And we were discussing what my friend's thing is, and then I was like, "What's my thing?" And she was like, "That God." And I was a bit like, what? And she was like, yeah, God, that's what you talk about all the time. And I was a bit like, right, okay, so that's my thing. My thing is God. And I was laughing, and then for a couple of days I was like, is this a bit strange? Is that a strange thing to have? Is that my thing is God? And I've just completely forgot my train of thought because I stopped to tell that story. It's not a new concept, right? It's something that I always talk about there. There, I've got it back. Got it back, guys. Got it back, remembered. It's something that I always talk about. I've talked about with everyone and anyone for the past 6 years, is that you are God. You have the same energy within you. Your soul, your consciousness is the energy that created this universe. It's an aspect of it. The day that I heard it in meditation, and I heard it very specifically, you are God, but so is everyone else. And I heard it again yesterday when I was out driving, that this is the thing to talk about on this week's call, or this was the theme for this week's call. The reason why I heard it in the way, but so is everyone else, it was a direct message to me based on what I had been going through that week, that I had forgotten at times that everyone else is also God, that everyone else is also an aspect of God, that they're channeling the frequency of God as well, and that they're channeling it through their own perception. And I was creating a separation in a specific situation. I was creating a separation between me and another person, where I placed myself above the other person in the hierarchy, because that's what we do for safety reasons, right? either place ourselves higher to stay safe, or we place ourselves lower to stay safe. So we put other people on pedestals, or we put ourselves on a pedestal. This is a hierarchy that is created through fear. And it's a fear that was created in childhood that we've somehow got to put somewhere to a story in adulthood. So we'll create a hierarchy with it. So I was in a situation where I was making the other person wrong and I was right. And then in meditation I heard you are God, but so is everyone else. So then I sat with that sentence, and I applied it to the situation that I had been thinking about, that had been on my mind for a few days. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? What does it mean that I am God, but so is this person that I'm in this situation with? And the place that I got to with it is, well, what would God say about that? What would God, there's these bumper stickers, isn't there? It says, well, what would Jesus do? And so recently I've been asking myself, well, what does God think about that? And I ask my clients as well when they come on to calls with me and they talk about specific situations, what does your God say about that? And I have clients that from lots of different denominations, like some are atheists, some are very, very involved in an organised religion, some are somewhat somewhat involved in organised religion, some are just very spiritual as well. But everybody has either got a God or they've got a highest version of themselves that they're maybe not quite ready to name God yet, but we're all talking about the same thing. And I will always say, well, what does your God say about that? What does your God say about that situation with that person? And the answer is, God is unconditional love. Like, that's what God is. So God would view every situation through the lens of unconditional love. And I was not doing that in this situation. I was afraid, and within the fear, I had to create a hierarchy. And the hierarchy was I was right and the other person was wrong. That's a fear response that I've had for a long, long time, since childhood. And I was after I heard the sentence, I was walking home from the shop a day or so later, and I recalled a conversation I had with someone a few years ago when I was going through a very, very intense situation with a particular person that we were completely on opposed sides of the fence in this situation. And I was talking about it with a friend of mine one time, and he said, what if the other person is 50% correct? And I just, like, it took every ounce of willpower I had not to just stand up and walk out the room when this person said this thing to me, because I was like so sure that I was 100% correct in this situation. And he was like, and you could see the anger, the rage on my face, and he was like, well, I know that you don't like the thought of that. I know you don't like the feeling, but let's just say you're 50% correct and he's 50% correct. How does that make you feel? And eventually I had to just take on board what he'd said. And I was like, okay, right, let's act like the other person is 50% correct. And where I got from that as time went on and as I meditated further is, okay, right, well, if I'm God, so is this other person. So I think I'm right. He thinks he's right. We've both got access to this higher energy. I'm not accessing the higher energy if I'm placing him over there in the wrong. If I'm opposed, I'm not accessing the higher energy, because that's not how God works. God created all beings equal. He created everyone on the planet equal. He loves everybody on the planet equally. He protects and provides for everybody on the planet equally. So why would why would me, an aspect of God, create a separation between me and this other person? He's right and I'm right and he's wrong. There's obviously a lot of nuance to that, okay? And I've had a lot of times where I will be, and it's generally like in a group setting rather than a one-to-one setting, because in a one-to-one setting you can have more in-depth chat about, like, what do you mean by this and what do you mean by that? What about this person that did this to me and what about that person that did that to me? They were wrong and I was right and they weren't acting like God and I was being my highest self. And there's lots and lots of nuance to this. But I stand by what I say. We're all an aspect of God. Everybody on this planet, everything on this planet is an aspect of God. And there is a version of God inside each and every one of us. How can we marry that up with people that do things that are considered evil in the world? There's a passage in the Bible from Isaiah 4, chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all of these things. That's in the Old Testament. And I've been meditating on that a lot for the past few weeks, that passage. I create the darkness and I create the light. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. And that's God. That's a passage from God. And so, how does that compute with unconditional love? If we are saying that God is unconditional love, but God also creates darkness and evil, God created every single thing on the planet, so He also created the things that we consider evil. How do we live with that? How do we witness evil, witness wrongdoing on a even witness like slights against us on a smaller level to big huge catastrophes and acts of violence and evil. Where I've come to when I've been meditating on this for the past couple of days is on the whole idea of you're God, but so is everyone else, is that we have to sit on the seat of neutrality when viewing something outside of ourselves that we consider good or evil. We still have to sit in the seat of neutrality with it. Obviously, when we experience joy and good things and happiness, then they feel good in our body. We enjoy them. We like the feeling of joy. We like the feeling of happiness. We like the feeling of peace and connection and alignment. But when something happens that we don't like, simultaneously we will feel pain, anger, fear, shame, sadness, and those feelings don't feel good. So it's like this barometer of feelings. Okay, so it's like shame does not feel good, joy does, right? So what do we want? We want more of the thing that feels good. I often say this, there's a direct correlation between the two. Like to feel great joy, you've probably felt great pain. I couldn't feel anything. I sat in a place of numbness and apathy for most of my life. But when I allowed myself to feel the pain of the things that I'd been through, I was able to actually joyously feel the happiness, the joy, the love, the connection, the peace, like proper peace, not numbing, like actual peace in my body. And it feels very, very different from numbing. Peace feels indescribable if you've never felt it before. So quite often people think that they're peaceful, but actually they're just numb to the point of not being able to feel anything at all. So when we witness acts of what we would deem evil or even just wrongdoing against us, then we have to sit on God's seat. We have to access that direct line to God when things like that happen and ask ourselves, well, would the highest version of me do in this situation? What does the God within me want me to do in this situation? Now, those acts of wrongdoing are, they could range from your work colleague not shifting their weight, not pulling their weight, or messing up on an assignment that the two of you were doing together, and they didn't do the part that they said they were going to do, and you feel over here feeling in your feelings about this, and they're over there feeling in their feelings about that, then you're like, right, they've done me wrong, that's a wrongdoing. It's being able to sit on the seat of neutrality, the seat of God, and being like, right, well, what's actually happening here? What is this trying to teach me? Another one, that lots of my clients go through is long held, long repressed anger towards their parents for things that happened in their childhood that their parents didn't realize that they were conditioning all of this energy, all this traits and behaviors in them as kids that when they grow up and start doing personal development work, they realize that it's not quite as beneficial as what they thought it was, and they look back and they're like, but I only behaved like that because of that person over there and because they did this, so I turned out like that. And then there's all this anger and resentment and shame and fear and sadness there's just accumulating inside for a long time, and it all comes up into the surface, and they want to put it somewhere, so they put it over there, or else it's the husband that's not been lifting his weight in the relationship, and I'm doing this and he's not doing that, and I'm doing this and she's not doing that. And the idea that you have this highest version of you within you, but so does every single other person on the planet. And how do you get to a place where your highest self is speaking to their highest self? So your version of God within you is speaking to their version of God within them. My answer to that is, how do we get to that place? My answer to that is always through meditation. It's through silence. It's through stillness. It's through coming back to center. It's through sitting with your own body and being in your body, and accessing that that line to God, that direct communication with God. Like I said at the start of the call, you don't have to access it. You don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to, I'm going to sit here in meditation and hear a message. Quite often you won't get a message if you're looking for it like that, because it's not the way the messages come in. It's like you're going knocking on the door looking for it. The messages come in from outside of you. All you have to do is be open to receiving them. You have to be the reception of them. So how do we be open to receiving? Is that first of all, we have to be in our bodies. We can't be in our heads, because they come through the whole system, which is body, mind, and soul. So we have to have all of that integrated together before we've got the full reception open, the antennae open for the messages to be received. There's many, many ways that we can make sure that our receptors are clear and ready to receive the correct messages. And there's a lot of nuance with that as well, because there's no mistakes. And it's this paradox of explaining this to my clients that and myself, that ego versus soul, or detours on the path, but also there's no mistakes. So if you believe that you've received a message from your body, from your highest self, from God, and then as time goes on with expanded levels of consciousness, you look back and you're like, that probably was actually from the ego, from a fear-filled space. That's amazing as well, because you were supposed to feel that feeling, you were supposed to hear that message, and you were supposed to take that detour on the path, so that then you could expand your levels of consciousness over here, so that as you continue on down the path, things become more easy and more free flowing as you walk down. So there are no mistakes when it comes to receiving messages from God. There are no mistakes when it comes to forgetting that you are God, and that so is everyone else, because all of the things that happen, everything belongs, and all of the things that happen are supposed to happen in the way that they do. There's never been any mistakes. Every single thing that's ever happened, every single thing that ever will happen, happens because it's supposed to happen. How do we know this? Because that's the way it happened. How do we know in the future? Because we look back on it and go, well, that's the way it happened. Now, within that, the nuance within that is that we have an ability, we have a connection with the highest source, with the highest version of ourselves, with God, that wants us to go down the path of least resistance, the path of joy, the path of presence, the path of happiness, the path that's the glorious path is how I describe it to my clients, because God wants us to walk a path that is beneficial to us for the expansion of our consciousness. Now, the thing with that is it doesn't always feel good, because when our levels of consciousness are expanding, we have to shed parts of ourselves, and sometimes that shedding can be painful. But it's all in the journey through life as we learn more and more and more and get back more and more in alignment with God. So I've just gone off on one, which I always seem to do. And what I've noticed is that I do it at the end of the 60 minutes, because it's like I want to get all the information out at once. And I got really excited about it. And I've been watching this guy on some videos from the 80s and 90s and on YouTube. And he interprets the Bible from an astrological point of view. And he gets really, really excited when he gets to the end of his segment. And then I was watching it the other day and I was like, that's what you do. Like I do it when I'm creating YouTube videos, and I've done it on these past couple of calls, where when I get to the end of the segment, I get more and more excited. And I'm like, wait, I've got loads of information still to give you. Or I don't know if it's at that point that I actually like fully relax my body and get into flow, but I noticed that I did this last week as well. So the purpose of the theme, not the purpose, the theme of this week's call was "You are God, but so is everyone else." And the intention that I set for everyone at the start of the call was to get into alignment with that highest version of ourselves. That direct contact that we have with God at all times. What I want us to be able to do is to be able to remove any blocks that are in the way of being able to contact that higher version of ourselves at any time. And those blocks come up in the form of fear, shame, anger, grief, all the emotions that sit at the bottom of the table of consciousness. And the way that we remove those blocks and therefore get in more alignment with that God version of ourselves is they come up to the surface to be seen, to be processed, to be let go. So it's really, really beneficial when we feel these feelings. And following on from last week when I said this, it's like we want to get to a place where when things go wrong, when problems or challenges are placed on our path, that we're like, yay, this is amazing, this is great, because I'm going to learn something about myself. And by the way, no one finds this more challenging than I do. My friends will attest to this, that I still find this challenging when you're in the midst of it and you're feeling the feelings. There's a little voice in the background now that goes, oh, but you're learning something and you're going to feel great after you've figured all this out. That is there, and I can hear it, and it gets louder and louder every time. But still, when you're in the middle of the emotions, in the middle of the situations and the challenges, you feel very hyped up by it. But these challenges, these adventures, as my clients call them, now are placed on our path so that we can expand, so that we can get closer to God, so that we can become more aligned with that God version of us. So I remembered something that I was going to say earlier as well, is that my friend said to me this week that all of the YouTube videos that I make and all of the talks that I have and the coaching that I do, that she said that you're always talking about the same thing. It's always the exact same message. You just tell different stories. There's just a different theme every week to tell the same story, or to tell the same message with a different story. And the message is always, you are God. You have God within you. You have an aspect of God within you. It is your soul. It is your consciousness. You have access to it at all times. God speaks to you through your body. What I hope for you to get on these calls is, and especially as time goes on and I get better at articulating it, is the understanding that you have that access to God and the ability to hear when God is speaking to you. That is what I want for every person on this planet, that you remember, realize, and believe that you're God, and that you are able to access, and that ability to access God and that ability to hear God speak through you and guide you down this path so beautifully, that happens through synchronicities, through hearing messages through your body, through other people saying messages to you, and they might say them randomly or they might say them with intention, through the world round about you, telling you which path to get back onto, which is your glorious path. every single person watching this has got access to that, and I want you to be able to remember you've got access to it and to be able to hear. And it's a muscle, and every week we're going to practice and practice and practice it, and we're going to practice hearing God, and we're going to practice giving our problems to God, and we're going to practice accessing that direct line to God every week. So if you have any questions, because I believe I've been talking for 60 minutes, I think. So if you have any questions, then please type them in the box and you can come on and chat with me for 30 minutes or so. You can go from there. Anything that I've said over the course of the 60 minutes that you agree with and want to delve into further, or anything, and I really, really welcome this, anything that you disagree with and you would want to delve into further, because one of the purposes of these calls and these chats is to get things out from the shadow out into the light. So if there's anything that I've said that you don't agree with, or that if you feel triggered by or upset by, then at all times I'm more than happy to have talks with you about it. So if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A, please. So someone has asked, what do you mean when you use the word God? Answer, like, what do you mean by what do I mean? Oh, okay. So consciousness. Do you mean when I talk about consciousness? Because I might upset some people on the call here when I say this, because I don't believe that there is an Almighty that created the world within 7 days. So I don't mean a religious God. I think that religion is an interpretation of the energy that we carry within us, and that there are a lot of aspects of the interpretations that are very, very beneficial to society, and there are some aspects that are very, very not beneficial to society. And that's been the case for thousands of years. The God that is within us all is our soul. It's the spark of energy that is within us. So consciousness that is within us all. We are not our bodies. We associate so much with our bodies that if someone said to you, "Who are you?" you would say your name, or well, people don't generally say, "Who are you?" right? They would say, what's your name? Tell me about yourself." Right? So I would say, "Oh, my name is Ali. I was born in Scotland. I left Scotland in 2015. I've got two daughters," and I could describe all of these characteristics, these traits. I could describe my personality. But if we strip all of that away, if we took all of that away in every single person, if I took away your name, if I took away your job, if I took away the fact that you're a parent or not a parent, if I took away your childhood, where you were brought up, how you were brought up, underneath all of that is a consciousness that is nameless and formless, that is not associated with the reality that we've created in this dimension. So inside of all of us is the exact same thing. It just manifests in these different bodies, these different personalities, and this separation. But there's an energy, a source, a consciousness, the soul that is inside of every single living thing on this planet that connects us all together. That is God. It's the source of all creation. That's God. When we die, the body is an empty shell. So, but where do we go? Where does remember when my mother died? I was like, but where is she? Where is my mother? Like, I understand. I saw her body in the funeral home, but she was not in her body. It was just a body. It was her hair and her face and her clothes, but she wasn't there. So where did she go? Where did all of our memories go? All of her thoughts, all of our beliefs, all of our love, all of our anger, like where did it all go? That's what leaves the body when we die. That's the aspect of God that is it never ends. Like the energy never dissipates, it never goes away. It's just always renewing. And that's the energy that is creates the planet, has created the universe. I don't know what God is. He's nameless and formless. Like I don't know what it is. In my imagination, I imagine this big ball of blue light. I don't know why, but it's like this big ball of blue light that's constantly going like this and like vibrating. And that to me is God. I refer to God as He, simply I think because I was brought up Catholic and that's how I've always referred to God. Yes, there is a religious God that lots of different religions have different interpretations of. Some are closer to my beliefs than others. But your question of you're not saying I'm the Almighty that created the world within 7 days. Well, I'm saying that you're an aspect of that. If that's what you believe that God is, if you and I know by the way that you don't, but if you believe that there is a God that is this almighty being, um, then I believe that you're an aspect of that, and that's the passage in the Bible, we are created in the image of God, or man was created in the image of God. We are an aspect of the creative energy that created the whole planet and created the universe. Does that answer your question, or do you have another question that might help me be able to explain it better? What do you want to give to God? You want to give to God your glorious path. So, by the way, for anybody that's listening to this lovely lady is a client of mine. That's why she calls it Glorious Path. Um, you want to give God your glorious path. Well, first of all, can I ask a question? Do you believe in God? What does that mean? And if you don't mind sharing with us, and this can be removed from the recording, what do you mean by discovering more about what I'm talking about? How have you discovered it? And how do you know that that's God and not me? Just me getting you to do the stuff? Can you explain what those things are for the people listening? So just for anyone that's listening that maybe doesn't understand what you mean by that, because I understand what you mean, that I have been coaching you for 6 months now on being able to hear the voice of God, who I deem as God, which is you can also call your highest self. I've been able to hear the messages and follow even not just the messages that you hear audibly, but also it's not really audibly, like that you just get a feeling in your body, but also like synchronicities, which is things that happen outside of yourself that seemingly are not connected, but are placed on your path at exactly the right time to send you a message, let's say from God. So an example of that is, you're making a decision, you're trying to make a decision about something, and the answer is yes or no. And let's say it's about traveling to somewhere, and you didn't know if you should go or not, and then everywhere you turn, you see the name of that country everywhere you go. and it's like the universe, God, your highest self is attracting all these messages towards you. That's like, okay, right, look, I've seen that name. I've seen this happen to me before. I was going to Morocco, and I was in two minds about going or not. Even that sentence, think about it. I was in two minds that I couldn't decide if I was going to go or not. And then everywhere I went, I kept saying the word Marrakesh or Morocco, and there was a Moroccan restaurant, and then I walked by a Moroccan shop, and I was like, right, okay, right, okay, I'll get on the flight and I'll go to Morocco. That's what synchronicity is, or an example of synchronicity. Um, that's also an interpretation of it, and that's why I'm asking you this question, because you've come along to my program and as a very, staunch non-believer of God, and then I didn't sit you down on the first day and say, by the way, you are God and you're going to hear messages through your body, and that's it, and that's just the way it is. It was a gradual releasing of a lot of your own emotions that were causing a misalignment within your own system, that were causing a disconnection from your highest self and also from your physical body. And then from there, the opening of the door that allowed you to start perceiving the messages that you hear through your body, hearing them, perceiving them in the way that they're designed to be perceived, receiving them, and also paying attention because you've got more presence to synchronicities and things round about you. Would that be an accurate description of what's happened over the past 6 months? And when you say that you're on your way, do you mean you're on your way to believing that God is real, that you are God, or that God? Do you believe that people have souls? Are you sure? You understand and believe that people have consciousness. So the God that I am speaking of is that. It's consciousness. It's the collective consciousness. It's the collective consciousness of everything thing on the planet. Your inability to connect with the word God, where did it come from? Can you talk a bit about that? Is that okay? Do you mind talking a bit about it? What do you think to that? Do you think your inability to, or your hesitation to outright yes or no? Because when I asked you, do you believe in God? You said, I'm on a journey to believing. Like, what's it going to take? Like that's it's not an answer. I'm on a journey to believing. It's dipping your toe in and then running away. Do you think that that's based on fear of your conditioning from childhood? The releasing is a process for sure. It is. Do you believe in God? Yes or no? Okay, so there you go. It's just taken you quite some time to be able to come out and say it, I think, which is another thing. Because what does that mean if you say it? Anything else from your household that you don't have the same views on anymore? And by the way, it's a huge part of life, and it's quite scary, really quite scary. Is you feel a bit naked. I always say you feel a bit naked in the middle of the road when you realise that you were brought up in a tribe, and the heads of the tribe said a certain thing, and then you get to an age and you go, no, actually, I don't agree with that. Especially when it's about big things. It's like you're like this little baby that's just been put outside by yourself. The other things that you don't necessarily agree with that were, let's say, rules and regulations in your tribe growing up, do you have as much hesitation as saying that you don't? And I don't mean to the tribe members, I mean to me or to yourself or in general. Do you have as much hesitation? How do you feel knowing that you've got an aspect of that God inside of you, that energy? How does it make you feel? We could call it another name if you don't like the word God. What if the God of religions, all the religions, was 50% correct? How does that make you feel? What would you think if someone had an opinion on something that they don't know anything about? What do you think to that? Do you have any opinions on religion other than that it brings people a lot of faith and a lot of comfort in having their faith? Which were? What were the opinions? Do you think there's truth in that?
I don't know these days.
I think that we can safely say that there is some truth in that. There's an element of truth that religion does cause some problems. Organized religion causes some problems. It causes some harm. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. There's people that believe, and to a certain extent, I believe this as well, that, you know, movies cause harm, music causes harm, computer games cause harm, football, where I come from, football causes a lot of harm. Do you think we could put religion in along with those things? You said that when you hear the messages and the thing, when you follow the messages that you hear through your body, you didn't say this, but I'll ask this question. When you follow the messages that you hear through your body, are the results generally favourable, or I don't want to put words in your mouth. So tell me, you don't have to tell me the specifics, but tell me what, how do you feel when you follow the word of your body, the word of your highest self? This is the glorious path. That's one thing I want to make very clear. You're on it. You're not taking steps to get to it. You're on it. It's all glorious, even the challenges. Does that resonate? When you were growing up, and I know this is challenging for people to think about things like this, but when you were growing up and your tribe were saying all the things about people that follow organized religion and instilling those beliefs in yourself as a young kid, and then having them as an adult and having them almost like unconsciously, like just automatic on autopilot. How when before you learned about consciousness and the soul and the glorious path and God and all the different terminology that we just use for spiritual development, how did you feel then? How did you feel when you were just believing the things that you've been taught to believe, and that all people that followed organized religion were less than intelligent, that it was the root of all evil, that it was the cause of all harm in the world? How did you feel when that was your view of life? You didn't feel because you were numb. Okay, so thinking back to those, it's a very good observation. Okay, so thinking back to those times compared to now, if you weren't numb, what do you think you would have felt? Fear, anything else? Judgment is shame. projected out. So if you judge someone else, it's shame externalized rather than internalized. So there's two ways to feel shame. You can feel it inside your body for yourself. You've done something wrong, or that person out there has done something wrong. So shame would be another one that I would imagine would be the feeling that you had. So it's a trick question. You're over here and you're believing all these things that you've been taught to believe, that religion and God and all these things are for stupid people. I mean, even the vernacular, right? It's not a kind, joyous, happy word like stupid or less than intelligent. That religion causes all this harm and it's a bad thing. You're over there and you're feeling anger or sorry, fear, sadness, shame, and then you step into this world where someone is like, oh, you're God, God is inside of you, and God speaks to you through your body, and you're able to receive messages not just through the body but through the world around you, and you start paying attention to it and you start following the messages. And how do you feel over here when you're following the messages and your life's opening up? Was it excited? Is that what you said? So which one of those do you think's more fun? So I've had this conversation with someone recently where, you know, we've been doing the work together for a long, long time, and she will quite often say to me, I still don't know if I believe it though, it's just like, um, am I just making these things up in my head if she sees synchronicities or hears messages through her body? I just don't know if I'm just making this stuff up in my head and maybe it's not real. And I was like, maybe it's not, but it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more joyous. I feel more happy. I feel happier knowing that I'm magical. I feel happier knowing that I'm connected to God. I feel excited that the energy that created every single thing on this planet is also within me. So therefore I can create my dream life. So I feel excited about that. I mean, the feelings that anybody has in their body when they're talking in this way and when they're thinking in this way and when they're feeling the excitement of the glorious path, that feels a lot better than, oh, look at that person over there, they're stupid because they go to mass every week. Like, which one of those feels better in the body? Our bodies are these emotional barometers that tell us what feels good. Follow the path that feels good. Follow the path that feels exciting. Follow the path that feels fun. Follow the path that sometimes is challenging, but you know that what comes at the other side of the challenge is evolved levels of consciousness and a higher way of living. All of the desires that you have are manifested when you push through the challenges of fear. Even if you don't believe in God, like believe in your body, believe in your own feelings. The challenges that we have is that people can't feel the feelings because they've numbed themselves to the point of distraction where they can't, which is where you said you were a few years ago, that you can't feel anything at all. But the world round about you shows it to you. Like there's an algorithm in nature that shows it to you. It's like, oh, um, religion is the cause of all harm. And then, well, I watch the news all day and there's wars everywhere. Like, okay, we'll switch off the news and go and sit in a field and look at butterflies. And then you won't be thinking about that over there and you'll feel better if you're thinking about this thing over here. And then you will start to realign with the creation of the creator of butterflies, and you'll realize that you've got that same creative energy inside of you and you can create a life that actually feels good, that you don't have to numb yourself from. I would just always choose the thing that feels best. I think your trepidation and your hesitation is just saying the word God, and it's making peace with the version of you. Like, how old is the version of you that's afraid to say she believes in God? What's she afraid of? And that's a legitimate fear when you're 8. Is it a legitimate fear when you're a grown woman that can have any beliefs that she wants?
No.
How do you feel about the word God? How do you feel about the word God? When you hear the word, how do you feel in your body? Do you think you would be kicked out of your original tribe for believing that there is a God? I don't need nor want people to use the terminology that I use just because I'm the person that uses it and I'm the person that teaches it. What I want is for you, for everyone that comes on these calls, for everyone that comes on my one-to-one sessions, is to feel the feeling inside when you're aligned with the energy that is God. And that is, and I know I've described this to you one-to-one, but also I'll describe it to everyone here. An impulse in your body, it comes in through your solar plexus. It's like a whoo. It's like you feel it in your body, you're like, oh, there's this thing I've got to do. It's an excitement, it's a joy, it's a let's do this, let's walk, this is the path, this is the right way, following the joy. My wish is for everyone to feel that. What you call it, how you describe it, what you attribute it to, it's very, very personal. I often used to say I use the word God because it's easiest to remember and it's dog backwards. But I'm not going to be afraid of a word. It's just a word, then don't be afraid of it. Your name is just a word, but you have an attachment to it, you have a connection with it. You know, I had this conversation with my oldest daughter where she was writing about manifestation, she was journaling, and she said, "And the universe will send me." And I said, a couple of sentences later, I said, "Then God will do this." And she went, "Well, it's not God." And then I explained to her what I meant by God, which is what I've explained in this call about it's the source of energy that is within us. It's our soul, our consciousness, not the God outside. And she was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, well, if you mean it like that, then yeah." And I was like, "You're just afraid of the word God because of you were also raised Catholic like me." So, someone has asked, can I add something to this discussion? Can you write it here, or do you want to come on? Because I'm aware of the time as well. Right. So you write it here for us, and I'll read it out, and then we can. Um, so I think if there's a fear around the word God, then that's something that you have to go and meditate on. I think that we have this idea that it's a journey. I'm getting there. That's actually what I said when my mentor said it to me in 2020. Do you believe in God? And I was like, yeah, well, I believe there's something. I'm going to come to your point that you just made there. I believe there's something, and then I had an experience, a very, very profound mystical experience where like literally a few hours later I was like to him, "Yeah, I believe in God." Yep. And I just owned it. I had no choice but to own it because I heard something in my body in a flotation tank a few hours later that was very, very profound. And it was the first time that I consciously heard or it's not hearing. It's so hard to describe, but you know this because you've said that you've had these messages at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's you believe that they're auditory, but they're not. It's a signal that comes in. You receive a signal, and we project our humanness onto it, and we turn it into a sentence or something. It's my interpretation of it is it's like an imprint onto the soul, and you go, okay, right, okay, that's that answer to that thing that I've been looking for, or there's that statement, or there's that question, or there's that yes or no answer. Um, I had an instance where I heard, I felt it, I experienced the imprint through my body, and I was just like, yep, that's it, I believe it. I know because I coach you, that you've had those experiences. I don't know if you've had them as profound as what I did on that first day, or I don't know if they are or if they're not because I'm not the one receiving them. But what I would meditate on is if you've received the messages and you followed the messages and it's working, is it just a fear of just owning it and saying, yeah, do you know what? Now actually I do. Yep, I'm going to just, in fact, you've said it on this call. I said, do you believe in God? Yes or no? And you said yes. So are we just scrapping the idea that I'm on a journey to believe it now? Are you just there? You're there. You believe in God. Well, I mean, if that's what we've achieved for the last 100 minutes, then I'm really happy with that, because at the start you said, at the start of the Q&A, you said that you were on a journey to believing. I don't think that that was true. I think that was just a safe story that you were telling yourself to get you to not jump off the edge. But now that's it. You believe in God, you're going to get a give it to God tattoo, the same as mine. You're going to get it on your arm, but not on the left forearm. Is that what we're saying? That's what I'm hearing. We've had a comment that says, I think of God as divine inspiration, that voice that comes from within when I'm connected to my true soul. That is it. That is exactly what it is. I use the word energy because it's an energy that this is a planet of energy. That's all we have. Everything is made up of energy. So the voice that comes from within, it's an energetic frequency that we are interpreting as a voice, as we are interpreting as like an auditory message of go and do this thing or do that thing or don't worry these. So this morning I was on the beach and I was meditating on the beach, and it was quite busy at 7 a.m. and which I was not best pleased about, and because I like the beach to myself, thank you very much, God. And God's like, well, Ali, get up at 5 if you want the beach to yourself. Um, and I was meditating, and I was like on a specific situation, and I was just like, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? And I was sitting there, and I just felt the word surrender come through my body, and I was just like, and it's very vague, right? Surrender. It's not an answer. The 5-year-old in me wanted an answer, wanted the God, my highest self, to be like, go and do that, and then do that, and then do that, and then do that. And I was like, right, okay. Instead, I just got told to surrender. And I just got back in my car and I was like, how about you just surrender? And that's my connection with God. I had to sit on the beach in silence, listening to the sound of the waves for 15, 20 minutes in meditation to hear a rather vague term, right? Surrender. What does that actually mean? Well, it just means just let go and just let go of control. Give it to God, which is the premise of this whole, I nearly said this whole show, this whole talk. Give it to God and know that there's a higher intelligence, a higher consciousness, a higher energy, a divine inspiration that created every single thing that we see when we look around, created created every single thing on this planet. Why would that energetic source not know the answer to our wee tiny, tiny problem that we have sitting on the beach this morning when there's billions, trillions of things going on in the world? There's a way, there's a divine, glorious path that is challenging at times, but the challenging is for the purification of the soul and is also wonderful and glorious and joyful and happy. It brings happiness, and it also brings sadness if you've got to purify your system of repressed grief, and it brings fear if you've got to purify your system of repressed fears, and it brings anger if you've got to purify your system of repressed angers that you repressed in childhood. That's still the glorious path. That's still the connection to the divine. And we're all a part of it. And we all beat as one big beating heart that is God. Like God is everyone and everything. It's just God is just a word. I love the word God now because I'm like, okay, I'm going to align with that word. I'm not going to associate it with the Catholic God that I was brought up with. I'm going to associate it with the energy within me that's the name I'm giving it. I mean, I could call God Ali because I'm an aspect of that, or I could call that God Francis or Ailey because that's my daughters and they're an aspect of it, of that energy. But if I say God, it's all encompassing. A lot of people, a lot of people have a lot of feelings about the word and God, some beneficial, some not so beneficial. It's just a word. If you believe that you're an aspect of the divine, of the energy that created this whole planet, you're also got an aspect of that creative energy inside of you. And more importantly, if that makes you feel excited, then follow that path. walk down that path and own it. It's an 8-year-old little girl that's afraid to own it. You're a 30-year-old woman, 30-odd-year-old woman. Own it. Yes, I believe in God. I am God. I can create my own reality. I do create my own reality. I can create anything. So what am I going to create today? Doesn't that feel good? Exciting? Rather than God causes all these problems. It's our perception. Maybe there's not a creative source, a big ball of blue energy that created the giraffes and the rhinoceroses and babies and puppies and the stars and trees and wellibits. Maybe there's not a ball of energy that created all that, but it feels right within my body to believe that there is. It feels fun, it feels exciting, it feels like I'm part of something bigger, that I'm in service to something bigger, that I can create the life that I want, the life that I desire. That feels much more powerful than just being passive in my life. So I would follow the barometer of all the positive light emotions that sit up at the top of the table of consciousness that make us feel good and change the world. They feel much better to me. Choose joy, choose happiness, choose peace, which was the other word that you said that you heard, choose excitement. And if all of those come from the glorious path that connects you to that highest level of consciousness and that highest version of you that's within you, then choose that, regardless of what the 8-year-old is afraid of. You're not going to get kicked out of the tribe. You are the tribe. You're an adult now. You are the head of the tribe. But what we've determined on this call is that you are now a member of the God Gang and you are a believer and you're a creator of your own reality and exciting things are happening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. And I will see you next week with Give It to God next Wednesday. And if you've got any questions that have come up from this week's video, please pop them in the comments and we'll get round to answering them on future calls. Thank you. See you all soon.